Some men don't grow older, they just get bigger. They wear adult faces, speak in adult tones, but beneath the surface, something hasn't shifted. They haven't stepped into themselves. They haven't grown up. Carl Jung understood this long before modern psychology gave it a label. He called it a failure to individuate, to separate from the childish self and integrate the adult psyche. This isn't about age. It's about responsibility. It's about self-awareness. It's about how some men stay stuck in a prolonged boyhood because it's easier to avoid life than to face it. The man-child avoids discomfort. He avoids discipline. He avoids accountability. He clings to fantasy over reality, pleasure over purpose, ego over effort. And on the surface, he might seem charming, light-hearted, even likable. But behind the mask is fear. Fear of growing, fear of failing, fear of becoming. Jung believed that every man must face his inner child, not to erase him, but to integrate him, to move from unconscious patterns to conscious presence. But many avoid this work. Why? Because staying a child is easier than becoming a man. Because maturity requires sacrifice, not just of comfort, but of illusion. The man-child remains at the center of his own story. He expects others to carry the weight he won't lift himself. And until he turns inward, until he confronts the part of him still waiting to be parented, he will never fully step into his life. The body may grow, but the self, it stays small. The man-child doesn't lack intelligence. He often knows exactly what's wrong, but knowing isn't the same as changing, and insight without action becomes just another excuse to stay the same. Carl Jung believed that growth begins when we leave behind the fantasy of the perfect parent. The inner child in every man longs to be rescued by a woman, a mentor, a system, but no one can do the inner work for him. At some point, he has to become the one he was waiting for. The man-child avoids this by escaping into distraction. Games, status, casual praise. Anything that feels good right now and asks nothing of him tomorrow. He fears structure because it threatens his freedom. But what he doesn't see is that discipline is freedom. That order is not the enemy of expression, it's the container that makes it possible. Jung taught that the masculine psyche must undergo a death of the ego's need to be adored, protected, and praised. Only then can the deeper self emerge. But the man-child resists this. He clings to comfort. He resents responsibility. He fears being ordinary, yet does nothing to become extraordinary. So he stays on the sidelines, waiting, drifting, blaming. And as time passes, the cost becomes harder to ignore. Relationships suffer. Potential fades. He wonders why life doesn't feel real. And it's because he hasn't fully entered it. To grow up is not to abandon joy. It's to choose meaning over impulse, direction over escape, to stop asking the world to raise you and start raising yourself. Until that shift happens, the man-child will wear a mask of adulthood while hiding from the work that would actually make him one. Carl Jung taught that every man carries within him a profound archetype, a blueprint brimming with psychological potential. Yet, potential alone means nothing without integration. Without it, potential merely casts a shadow. Within the shadow lurks the unformed masculine, embodied by the man-child who resists becoming. He refuses not because he can't, but because he won't. Growth demands accountability, a realm where the false self crumbles. The man-child blames the world for his lack of progress, seeing commitment as a cage and responsibility as a trap. In his world, freedom equates to avoidance, and maturity threatens his sense of identity. Real growth, though, does not erase self. It unveils the person feared to emerge. Jung warned of men who dodge the hero's journey, fearing trials and refusing calls. In their drift, under-challenged and over-entertained, they may appear successful, yet are inwardly hollow. These men surround themselves with enablers, evading true challenges to avoid confronting their own voids. Transformation is the key, beginning with recognition of responsibility. Jung's path directs us to face shadows, embrace responsibility, and choose purpose over comfort. For true life begins when pretense ends. The world often rewards the man-child. He's charismatic, agreeable, non-threatening. He avoids conflict. He plays the role, and for a while that works. But Jung would say it's not working, it's delaying. Because behind the charm is fragility, behind the passivity is resentment, and behind the smile is a boy pretending to be a man. Carl Jung believed that unresolved wounds become unconscious patterns, and the man-child lives from those patterns, projecting his unmet needs onto others. He looks for partners to mother him, friends to rescue him, mentors to carry him, but every time he hands away responsibility, he hands away his power, and over time, that powerlessness becomes a kind of quiet despair. He may say he wants to grow, but his actions reveal the truth. He fears the weight that growth brings, because real maturity isn't about image, it's about integration. It's when a man begins to make peace with discomfort, when he stops blaming the world and starts building something of his own, when he stops chasing ease and starts choosing meaning. Jung taught that the path to manhood is not external, it's internal. It's not about status, muscles, or success. It's about facing the part of yourself that wants to stay a child forever. That part must be seen, understood, and outgrown, not rejected but guided, because only when the inner boy feels seen can the man finally rise. And when he does, he moves differently. He speaks with clarity. He stands with presence. He builds not from need, but from depth. That's when a man is no longer pretending to be grown. He is. To grow up is not to lose your youth. It's to reclaim it with consciousness, to become the person your younger self needed, not the one the world pressured you to perform. Carl Jung believed that a fully developed individual is not cold or hardened. Instead, they are integrated and balanced, both strong and soft, disciplined yet alive. But the immature never arrive there. They fear the pain essential for real transformation and avoid the necessary inner journey. In doing so, they forfeit the life they could have led. The tragedy isn't in a lack of potential, but in the refusal to claim it. They remain in cycles, emotional immaturity, broken relationships, stalled purpose. And when they feel stuck, they blame the world instead of asking the harder question, what part of me am I still refusing to grow? That question is the doorway. It's uncomfortable, yet it's honest. Honesty is the start of growth. Jung taught that no one becomes whole without facing their own shadow, not to destroy it, but to bring it into the light. Own your flaws. Take responsibility for your story. Lead your life, not from ego, but from depth. This transformation is what separates maturity from youth. It's not about age or status. It's about the willingness to rise internally. If this message resonates deep within you, subscribe to The Wisdom Seeker. Here, we don't just talk about growth, we live it. We delve into psychology, philosophy, and the inner work that awakens the real self waiting behind the mask. True growth isn't loud, it's quiet, grounded, and it is earned through self-awareness, responsibility, and choosing growth over comfort.